Hi friends, my name is Mickey, and today I want to share something deeply personal and also deeply practical with you all. I want to share what to do and what not to do if you're trying to make your church's worship a little more interesting. If you are a younger person at all, even like under the age of 75, and you go to church at a more traditional place, chances are that your worships are kind of a hymn sandwich and low-key boring. So if you want to make your worships more interesting and more spiritually nourishing and more faithful to God's mission, stick around. A quick disclaimer, I am both a member and employee of my church, Community of Christ, and my words in this video do not necessarily reflect the views of Community of Christ. Yeah. Another quick note, this video is basically a little companion to my master's final project, so practicum. I need to do this to graduate, so I thought, okay, I've been wanting to make a YouTube channel for a bit. Let's kick it off here. I'm going to share what I've learned in this project with other people who might find it helpful. So I went into this practicum with a plan, and it was really organized and structured and like laid out, beautifully formatted with the pink headings and everything. And I learned that plans don't transform congregations, especially one little girl with a big crazy plan. It wasn't that crazy, but whatevs. What transforms congregations is not plans and rollouts and schedules. What transforms congregations is relationships and people and a lot of patience. This isn't like a 10 hacks for church growth. This video is a pastoral reflection. It's a conversation, maybe a field guide for communities who want more meaningful worship but aren't sure where to begin. Okay, also quick note, I'm not at my house. I'm across the country in Portland, Oregon. So I'm filming in my hotel room. I wish my house looked this beautiful and put together, but it doesn't. Also, if you hear any weird noises, I had to open the window to the room because I'm sweating my butt off. The temperature in Portland, Oregon, I feel like my body cannot adjust to it. All right, let's start. Let's start with the most honest part of this whole process that I went through and what I want to share, and that is what not to do when you're trying to transform worship or anything in your congregation. Okay, so number one on what not to do is do not assume excitement equals readiness. I presented my proposal at church in a very informal service, number one. It was weird to begin with because we were in the fellowship hall instead of the sanctuary. So everyone was just sitting around a big table because I wanted this proposal to be more of a conversation. And then I sent out a survey following that proposal. Essentially, my proposal was to establish a monthly rotation of worship services in order to get away from the hymn sandwiches every Sunday and to make Sunday worship relevant for all sorts of spiritual practice and thoughts and wherever someone may be in their life. This rotation, for example, it could be like first Sunday, we do communion. It's a traditional service. Second Sunday would be contemporary with more fun music, but still like have the same worship elements. Third Sunday could be a service project where we do some sort of outreach activity or have someone come in and talk about a local nonprofit. Fourth Sunday would be campfire service where either, weather depending, We hang out in the parking lot around a campfire or in the sanctuary around a campfire. Fifth Sunday is when people would be encouraged to go have church on their own with each other, take someone to lunch, invite people over for game night. So, anyways, when I presented my proposal at church, people asked very thoughtful questions. They were really warm. They engaged with my ideas and they supported me. And on paper, and like how I felt in those moments, the congregation was ready. But when the surveys came back or when I had individual conversations with people, I sensed a lot of hesitancy, anxiety, and just a longing for the familiar. This is understandable. So, all the feedback from my congregation taught me that their support did not necessarily equal their readiness, and affirmation does not really equal commitment. Paul writes to the Romans in Romans 12, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds. Any kind of transformation is not instant. It truly takes time. Another don't start redesigning worship before understanding the community's culture. Yikes. I did this. I had not gone to church for 7 years, and I just started going back to my childhood congregation around this time last year. And I thought I would knew everyone. I thought I was back into the game, whatever. We're all Jesus freaks, woo. And I had this vision to pick up the pace. Let's get going. Let's dance. Let's do cool things for worship. I had been inspired by people and friends from all across the country and what their congregations are doing. So I thought, why not do it at my home congregation? I had a vision. It was very exciting. It was, I thought, spirit-led, but I did not fully understand the communication patterns, the leadership structures, and the ongoing work that was already happening within the congregation. Alan Stanton, in his book, The Gift of Small, writes that in small congregations, learning the community narrative is part of the initiation. And I definitely skipped that initiation step. If you're trying to make changes in your congregation, do not ignore communication barriers or techniques or whatever. Make sure you understand them. So I don't have social media. I haven't for the past year. And my congregation kind of lives on Facebook. And if they're not communicating on Facebook, it's through emails, it's through group chats. It's kind of all over the place. So I literally had no idea how to get in touch with anybody. I had the handful of emails. So I relied on email and word of mouth, and that was not enough. Do not skeet out on communication. Know how to get to people. Do not mistake your personal call or calling for that of the congregation. God had something going on in me. I had something going on with me. I was stirring. I was ready to act. But my congregation needed time to hear their own version of that call. It's really hard to practice prophetic ministry over just reading about it or talking about it like I had done with my classmates. Prophetic imagination does not force change. It nurtures it, it nourishes it, and it evokes it. That's what I had read from Walter Brueggemann. Took a bit for me to really figure out what he was saying there, though. Last thing you should not do is think you can do a lot of change in a little amount of time. So I thought I could implement an entirely new structure of worship in just 8 weeks so I could get my project done, so I could graduate seminary, and I could walk across the stage and get a master's degree. That did not work out. It's hilarious and embarrassing to think how ambitious my timeline was. My congregation heard my proposal and they said, okay, let's take all of 2026 to figure that out. And I was like, okay, girl, that makes a lot more sense. Transformation is really slow. It's, if you think even about butterflies undergoing metamorphosis from caterpillar to their final form, that takes time. Trust is slow, building trust with people. And growing roots in your community takes a lot of time too. Okay, now that the hard part's out of the way, let's talk about what you should do if you're trying to implement change in your church or congregation. What you should do to start is listen, and listen deeply. My dean of my seminary is going to be watching this, and he's going to think I'm sucking up to him when I say this, and I'm not. But he said something that really stuck with me in this morning's service, and that's about how prophetic ministers just like live in the mystery of things. They are curious, they wonder, and they listen deeply. Listening is not like pre-work, it's not preparation. Listening is the work when you're trying to do any sort of transformation or change. So yeah, I did one survey. I had a lot of one-on-one conversations, and I asked, when have you felt the closest to God in worship? And that question really like changed a lot of things for me. It changed a lot in how I look back on this 8-week practicum, and it gave me a little bit more insight on how people in my congregation actually connect with the Spirit. Another thing you should do is build relationships, of course, with people in the community and the congregation, and with the leadership. I had constant communication with my pastor, Ruth, the worship leader, Craig, and my mentor, Travis, and they really became my core team and supported me and encouraged me and asked the right questions on like, what are you doing? Their excitement kept my vision alive, even when the congregation's energy dipped. So thank you, Ruth, Craig, and Travis. I love y'all. Do pace change with compassion. Walter Brueggemann writes about culture and that any culture gets tired, and tired people cannot leap into innovation. One thing they don't teach you about ministry is how important it is to rest so you can serve others and work with others. If you are not taking care of yourself, if you're tired, you're not going to be a good minister. Be well rested and take small steps into innovation. I was really inspired by Alan Stanton's book, The Gift of Small, which leads me to this next do, and that is do embrace the gift of small. So Stanton's book is about how we should be embracing our smaller congregations and churches, and that growth is not about how many people walk in through the doors. Success is not how many people are giving in the offertory or tithing. Success in a congregation and in somebody's faith is rooted into how well their spirit is nourished. And Alan Stanton says, if our faith is not being transformed, it is worthless. So small practices can spark huge transformation. For example, during one of the services I presided and planned, I played a Chance the Rapper song. And I was really nervous about it. But so many people came up to me after that service and were like, oh my gosh, the music that you chose was so great. Like, who was that singing? And I could see like those moments gave me hope that I was going in the right direction. And my congregation was kind of warming up to the idea of change. Other small practices that can spark huge transformation, shorter sermons that don't feel like sermons, they feel more like stories. I know my congregation responds well when they can giggle in church. And that really brings me joy. Another small practice can be approaching traditional, like normal elements of worship, such as the invocation or the offertory, in a new way, making them a little bit more interactive or less churchy. There is a couple in my congregation. I love them because they really try to reimagine how to do these traditional elements of worship in new ways. The week before Thanksgiving, they started doing this gratitude chain where it was a paper chain. You write what you're grateful for on every slip of paper and they staple it all together and make this huge paper chain. And that's been part of the offertory where you offer your piece of gratitude in the plate rather than cash. So it feels like we are giving back and we're sharing our gratitude with others. Anyway, that's just a beautiful little thing. So we are embracing the gift of our small congregation. Small acts that we do together lead to new imagination. Definitely treat resistance as information, not defiance. If somebody tells you no, that does not mean you should give up. Hesitancy does not mean no. It means I need more time, I need more trust, and I need to feel safe first. Do not get discouraged. Okay, this last do is a little bit corny because it's like a Jesus take the wheel kind of thing. But hear me out. So do let the Spirit take the lead. Now, let me explain myself. About halfway through my practicum, I realized that I was just way too early in doing all of this for my congregation and implementing this change and proposing this huge rollout of cool new worships, whatever. I was really early, but that doesn't mean that the spirit of the congregation was late. They just needed some time. And I needed to listen to God. I needed to listen to them. I needed to listen to myself, how I was feeling. And that discernment process ended up being like the holiest part of this practicum.
Okay, hey, this is future Mickey popping in to say I am like clearly getting exhausted like as this YouTube video goes on, and I am exhausted, but I hope it still makes sense.
This is where change actually happens. This is the part of my little video here where the theology meets the reality of ministry. Transformation equals formation plus time. Romans chapter 12, verse 2 reminds us that transformation is internal first. Congregations change when minds and hearts change. With that being said, peace is really slow and relational work. Based on what I've learned in the past 2.5 years of seminary trying to earn my master's, I learned that peace is built through trust, dialogue, conflict navigation and resolution, and shared meaning making. It is through empathy and listening and relationships, and it is not through top-down decisions. That's a little bit, you can't build community through one person making big decisions. Change also happens through prophetic ministry, and prophetic ministry is both combined. Prophetic ministry is this combination of critique and energizing. For example, and this is based off Walter Brueggemann, if you hold on to every critical word of feedback that someone gives you and you do not go anywhere with it except for dwell in your like self-hatred, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to grow. You're just going to feel sad and bummed and low all the time. And if you're just go, boots on the ground the whole time and not listening to any feedback, and you're just going at your own pace without without anyone helping you out. That isn't conducive to prophetic ministry or any kind of ministry. That sounds exhausting. Brueggemann says that prophetic ministers hold both the honest truth telling of critique and the energizing and hope-filled imagination. And put those together, you got a whole good situation going on. That balance is the work of renewal. So, okay, got all that. Back to my little congregation. I want to talk about the outcomes of my little 8-week moment. So we did not launch my proposal for a worship renewal, we did not launch my proposal for worship rotation this in 2025. Did not happen. 8 weeks? No. I was a fool for thinking I could do it in 8 weeks. But we are going to launch it in 2026, starting with the first quarter of the year, which is really exciting because that means people are ready to try something new. They just needed a little bit of time to settle in. Another outcome is the leadership. I have a better understanding of it. I think this whole process had made everybody understand each other a little bit better and how we should be communicating. There's been conversations on how we can improve communication throughout the congregation and within the leadership. The congregation itself has a lot of clarity on what to do moving forward, and they have time, which is great. I also practically learned how to do like stuff within the congregation and kind of gained a little bit more understanding of congregational structures and organization and procedures, whatever, which is good because I just got ordained a priest last month and I should probably know those things if I'm going to continue my leadership within the congregation. Community of Christ is all about continuing revelation, and something as a relatively new member to this church, number one, what is continuing revelation? I think I have an idea. Number two, I learned more about it through this project, and that revelation, it kind of unfolds like on its own. You can't push the envelope open. You got to let it peel up a little bit. Doctrine and Covenants, 163, 163. How do you say that? Doctrine and Covenants, 163, 11, A through B. Yeah. Steve Beasy, God bless his soul, he teaches us to discern what matters most in 163, 11b. I love that verse, and it really kind of guided me through this project because it calls for us to be a prophetic people, to listen to each other, and I now have a better understanding of that message.
Another future Mickey popping in to say, obviously, like, I didn't know what I was talking about here. Continuing revelation, for those who don't know, is this concept and idea that God is still speaking, and what's in scripture and what's already been written, that's not the end of it. If we think about it, why would God only have been talking thousands of years ago? Why can't God still be talking now? Do I sound like a cult person when I say that?
Of course, Alan Stanton, God bless ya, love ya. The Gift of Small, his book, it really validated my instincts. And Walter Brueggemann, my homie in all of this, great. Also, shout out to Donald Craybill on his insights on building the kingdom of heaven on earth, based on upside down kingdom, of course. Craybill has this great quote. I'm going to read it to you. He writes, Jesus says that true faith is anchored in the heart, not in tithing, sacrifice, cleansing, and other rituals. Yet he also argues that faith in God is always expressed and tangible acts of love for the neighbor. So this really, it comes back to this idea that we're all just empathy. We're all connected. Paul writes about it in, I think, Romans, talking about we're all one body, many parts of Christ. Crable's talking about it here. Your heart is connected to all these other people, and it doesn't matter in the end, if we're going back to the theological outcomes of all of this, it does not matter how you're worshiping or doing things in your congregation or your church. As long as you're looking out for the people in your community and you show them care and love and you truly care for and love them, that's all that matters. That's what being a Christian is. A very personal outcome of this experiment, I realized I have kind of a big ego and I like to stomp into things and stomp out things I don't understand are actually burning good fires, if that makes sense. Ministry is not about being impressive. It's also not about being powerful. It's about being faithful and humble and very present and a super good listener, which I need to work on. So my final reflections on this 8-week practicum that I'm trying to knock out so I can graduate in 6 days. Worship renewal or any kind of transformation is not about making church interesting or cool. It's about helping people encounter God in ways that are authentic to who they are and who the Spirit is calling them to become. So if I leave you with anything from this video, it's this. Start small, listen deeply, honor your community's story, communicate clearly and a lot, like to a point where you feel like it's too much. Let the Spirit lead the pace, and above all, remember that the body of Christ is beautiful, it is beloved, it's in the process of renewal, and it is you. We are all the body of Christ. Our job is simply to join in on what God is already doing. I want to thank you very much for sitting through this whole YouTube video. It is my first, and if you like it, let me know if you want me to talk more on the internet. It's been a long weekend. I've been working and talking a lot, and my vocal cords are fried, so I'm gonna go take a delightful shower and rest, and maybe watch other YouTube video essays. Okay, anyway, thank you. Love ya, mean it. Bye.